Hey folks, you asked for a stringing demonstration, such as I know, and there are lots of people have different ways of doing it. There are no right or wrongs, that's the first thing, so don't let anyone tell you there is. The way I do it now just came from a guy on a Facebook page, a guy called Gavin, who is a guitar tech for gigging bands in New Zealand, and Gavin's responsible for getting bands' strings changed in a hurry in between, or when they break on stage, or in between parts of the set, and he has to get the strings changed quickly and all the slack taken out of the strings so that they're ready to go and the musician won't be out of tune after the first 10 seconds of the song. So an example of how Gavin does it is this: he'll thread it through. In this case it's a through body stringing. My advice is, particularly with this kind of guitar or a Strat where it comes through the body, is make sure it's definitely all the way through, not caught on the edge, and then pull it sort of reasonably tight. Let's see if you can see what I'm doing here. Pull it reasonably tight. What you want to be doing is you've got to make sure that the ball or the barrel or whatever you call it on the string is up under in its ferrule or whatever that thing's called, so it's not hanging out or it's not catching on anything, because you don't want to start tightening it up and then find it jumps forward. So what I tend to do is I grab the string, pull it tight, I grab it at the first fret and I pull it back to the second fret and hold it. Then I wind it and I just make sure while I'm holding it, I can hold it loose, it doesn't matter. My intention is keep it under pressure and let the slack go underneath the string I'm holding. So the first time that this thing goes round and the slack is went underneath. Then what I'm going to do is just prop this neck a minute. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend the slack upwards, because I'm then going to press down whilst keeping everything under tension. I'm going to press the string down, so now it goes underneath the slack or the spare bit. So we've got 1 over and probably 1.5 under, and that gives me a fairly simple wind on, and then I can just cut that off right there. So I'll do it again. I've already pre-threaded these strings so that they're already through the body. Again, down this end, and make sure the string is right up inside the ferrule or whatever that hole is called, and I pull it all the way through. And if I keep it under tension, I guarantee it stays in the same place. So all the way through, straight, under some tension, make sure it's in the bridge position, and then I grab it, pull back a fret's worth, yes, and then just holding it in place, I kind of lift it higher actually, because I want the loose bit to go under first. As it goes under, I lift it up, keeping the string under tension. I then use my finger to point it down, so that as that loose string comes around again, this time the string I'm holding will go underneath, and then it falls into the slot, and I just leave it there for now and just chip that off, and then on to the third one, and so on and so on. So again, down this end, make sure it's all the way up, make sure it's across its bridge notch if you can, get it onto the peg, and so it's all nice and tight, everything's where it should be. And then again, just to repeat myself, back to this end, grab hold of this, back 1 fret, start winding. I'm just holding it pinched between my fingers, just raising it up a bit to make sure that that loose string goes underneath. Bend that up, keeping it under pressure, press it down, and then the second time it goes round it should go underneath, and if I have to push closer I'll do so to make sure it goes underneath, and then drop that into the slot. And it gets a bit more tricky when you switch hands, or you have to do it over the other side. And I'll make sure it's through, get the other ones out of the way. So the same principle applies through the hole, pull it reasonably taut, grab it, pull it back 1. Now this time I'm going to hold it there, and I'm going to switch hands, and I'm going to wind towards me, and it gets all a bit messy at this point. Now that flipped over, and I really want it to be there, so I can now hold it like that, and make sure the string I'm holding is on top. The loose bit goes round on the bottom, and this time now, again, I press it down, and you can still see I'm keeping the whole thing under tension. And this time though, as I come round, the bit I'm holding is going to go under the slack, and it will go around a couple of times underneath. So it's one above and perhaps 2 or 3 under. There's a bit more this time because, why is that? Because, I don't know why. So anyway, it doesn't really matter how many times it goes around. You don't want too much wound around the post, but there we go. So I'll just keep going because I wanted to show you the stretching bit at the end. So I might as well stick this out for a minute, cutting off the spare bits. If this was a Stratocaster, I would be not cutting the slack, the excess off the end yet, because if on Strat, if you have to, actually no, on this guitar probably I shouldn't have done that, but on any, thinking about it now, thinking out loud, on any guitar where the string has to go through the body, the worst thing to do is to try and get a string that's already been coiled around a tuning peg, to try and take that off and then use it again, and try and find a way of getting that to go through the body. It's really hard. It won't do it. So you'd find yourself having to cut. Ideally, I've messed this up a bit, you notice. I'm going to have to work to get this to go underneath. Stay there. Yeah, if you took these strings off now and tried to reuse them, you'd find that the bits at the end would be incredibly curly, and you'd never get those to go back through the body of the guitar if you wanted to restring it. Take them right off and restring. So my advice, if you're doing it, it's usually with a Strat, that's the problem, not one of these, is to leave this all on while you're doing it, and only cut it at the point where you're confident that everything's worked out and there's no chance of you needing to take this off and restring it. And that's somewhere right at the end. Okay, so I'm just on the last one now, and again it's all a little bit slack and kind of making it up as you go along at this point. So I've noticed with these thin strings, if you hold this up and pull it too hard, it'll pull it right out of the slot at this point. So you just need to hold it taut enough to get the loose string, the free string, to go under. Then hook up the loose bit, and then same thing applies, and then get your hands pressing right down there so the next lot goes underneath the spare with the excess. And there we have it. We don't want it right round the bottom of the peg, but we need it as close to the middle as we can go. If it's round the bottom, it will gradually work its way upwards towards the middle, and you'll get a load of slack for the first while you're playing it. Okay. So you probably can see from this that most of the time it's just about keeping it under a certain amount of tension. Then when you're convinced everything's good, snip off the ends, dispose of them somewhere where you're not going to chop them, stick them in the end of your fingers. A bit of fresh air in here now, it's getting steamy. Okay, so this is the next bit, final part of the little guide. Again, I could have pointed you to the one that Gavin did, but I don't remember where it is now, that's the only problem. So once you've got the strings on, next thing to do, and just do it straight away afterwards, is to get the strings and gently, with your thumb and fingers, just gently push and stretch out all of the natural stretchiness. The door's going to slam. Stretchiness in the string. You'll be amazed how much slack is picked up. And then go on to the next string. Oh, try not to drag it across the notch in the bridge. So this is just straight after putting the strings on. This is without adjusting the action. It's without tuning it even yet. It's without cutting the nut slots or setting them, and it's just doing, well, as soon as you put them on, just taking the slack away. Okay. And my experience, having done this a few times now, courtesy of Gavin's method, is that if you did this twice, tuned up to pitch in between, or prior to each time you did it, you're pretty much good to go. 3 times and you'll be absolutely safe to go and play live, and there'll be no more stretch in it. Of course, what this can't do is compensate for you if your tuners are rubbish, or if they're always going to be letting the strings slip on them. But I didn't want to do that. Twang that off the thing. So while I'm at it, let me just get a rough tuning. This hasn't got enough height to play. I'll put just enough action in this to tune it up. Sorry, just enough playing action in it to tune it up, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so just briefly, that's call that tuned, and then we just go and do the bending thing again, second time, and when we come back to tune it, you'll notice how much it's gone detuned again, but it won't be as much as the first time if we'd have set it up to tune, and then third time there'll hardly be anything left in it. So, I mean, just Vern, I'm looking at this now, and I just dialed in the tiniest amount of action, and that's playing already with probably 0.5 millimetre or something, or less than 1 millimetre at the 24th fret. So it's quite incredibly low and playable just to begin with, but obviously it's not necessarily desirable. See, that's almost done. So there you have it, the tuning method made simple, and twice and it stopped losing slack, so there you go.